You are listening to The Central Cast, a podcast for mystics and misfits just like you, recorded every week in Pasadena, California, before a live audience. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Thanks, Max and Dorian. I want to address the question today, how can we remain mentally, emotionally, spiritually healthy in times like these, where everything, not about you, but everything feels on the brink? You know, we're told the San Andreas Fault is overloaded and is overdue for a major rupture. The economy is struggling. There's a looming debt crisis underway. The regime is threatening to interfere with the midterm elections and subvert democracy like we've never seen before. The war in Iran is not going away anytime soon, apparently. We've got a burgeoning fascism problem. I don't know if you were here last week. We talked about that, as we do often. It's a stressful time to be alive and to be in the United States of America and in Southern California. Add to that the fact that we're all, I don't know about you, but most of us are online, probably more than we ought to be. And in a sense, we're more connected to others and the outside world like never before in human history. And yet, we feel more isolated and alone than ever before. It's a deeply spiritually challenging time to be alive, this moment in history, which makes spiritual communities like this one perhaps all the more vital, or any kind of meaningful community all the more vital. Just the act of gathering regularly, physically, with other human beings, especially in a space to engage in something contemplative together, to discuss important matters together, to share in some food and drink, to engage in some ancient rituals and traditions that connect us to the past and to something bigger than ourselves. There's something really vital, I think, about that. And again, it doesn't have to be here. Not just saying, oh, you got to be here. No, not into that evangelical, supremacist, exclusivistic idea of what community can look like. But kudos to you for being here. Yeah, it matters. And there, again, are other ways to maintain our spiritual, emotional, mental health. And I want to share some of the methods that I have acquired over the years that work for me. I'm going to share those with you. And then I'd love to hear what works for you too. And really what I'm talking about today can be summarized as practicing presence. Practicing presence, the spiritual discipline, if you will, of presence. What does that mean? Well, for me, it means being fully attentive, receptive, and grounded in the current moment, which is a way of being fully attentive, receptive, and aware of the divine, of others, and of our own inner lives. Practicing presence is a discipline found in most, if not all, of the major world religions and spiritual traditions. Within Christianity, I think we find Jesus modeling presence most often through deep listening and compassionate availability to others. Numerous times in the Gospels, particularly in Matthew and Mark, but numerous times in the Gospels, we find this phrase, and he was moved with compassion. Have you seen that one before? And he was moved with compassion. And then we find Jesus doing something meaningful to help someone else or to meet someone's need. This is such an easy thing to miss in the text, in these stories, but it's actually really important. Despite what you may have heard lately about the so-called sin of empathy, you maybe have heard of that, Jesus was entirely motivated from empathy and compassion. One may even say that empathy and compassion were the source of his spiritual vitality and power. But this is also what practicing presence looks like. You know you're in the moment. You know you are fully present and in the moment when you are moved by compassion and empathy. That feeling, that emotion is what it feels like to connect, to be connected to others really. And this often, I think this often means in a very practical, I want to talk about the practical today. It's very easy to talk about practicing presence in the abstract and make it sound all flowery and nice, okay? But I want to talk about practicalities. And for me, part of what it means to practice presence, and Bob, you shared this really well in the liturgy, it's about deep listening. Deep listening. And this is an important skill, I think, for all of us to develop. But I want to say that this is really the most important thing I've learned in my practice as a hospice chaplain. For those of you who don't know, I'm also a hospice chaplain on the side, and that means I meet with dying people in their homes every week. And one of the most important things that I've learned is how to listen deeply, and that means listening more to the emotion behind someone's words rather than just to the words themselves. Words can be distracting. It's easy to get distracted by words and be trying to be focused on the meaning and the content of words. And don't get me wrong, that's important. Okay, we're not trying to say that's not. But there's something I think even more important about listening for the emotional payload behind people's words. And this is a skill I think we all could benefit from developing, not just hospice chaplains. This is a very human skill. And the way this works, I think, at least in my practice, is to when someone's sharing an important story with you about themselves, an important experience or an important idea they have, or maybe they're sharing their beliefs and their convictions with you. It's in those moments that you can listen for, I don't know, keywords or tone or body language. You can pick up on these things and discover and hear the emotion behind what they're saying. And again, it's easy to get distracted by the words, easy to get caught up in the content and the meaning of words and start making judgments about what we like or don't like about what they're saying, or what we agree with or don't agree with, or what we find logical and coherent or not in what they're saying. The trick is to suspend, at least in that moment, to suspend your judgments and listen instead for what this person is feeling and perhaps why they are sharing it with you. That's an important question to harbor in that moment. For example, I met with a patient just this last week in her home who explained to me very succinctly and matter-of-factly her 8-year story of struggling with cancer and the fact that she knows now she is going to die and die very soon. And this was, of course, a heartbreaking story, but she was telling me it in the most calm, matter-of-fact way that it made me realize she's at peace with this to a great degree. She has made her peace with this, and this is what she's trying to tell me. And so I reflected that back to her and told her that's what I was hearing, and she agreed. And she then reflected on those feelings of peace and acceptance, and that in turn helped her feel those feelings on a deeper level. And it was a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful moment for both of us. She also shared her very traditional evangelical beliefs with me and said some things that I find problematic, but I I brushed those judgments aside in the moment because what she was really trying to convey to me was how connected to God she feels. How connected she feels to the source of her comfort, to the source of just something bigger than herself that, again, gives her a sense of meaning and depth. And I affirmed that, even though what she was saying was a little triggering, right? But you got to set that aside in those moments, in those contexts. This is what deep listening sounds like. And again, this is the way of practicing presence, and we all can do it. And I think we all should do it. And it takes a little bit of work. And to be frank, it may come more natural to some than others. Personalities are different. Some of us are maybe better at that kind of intuitive or empathetic listening. I don't know. But I think we all can do this to some capacity. And by practicing this, we will not only bring some healing and peace to others, but also to ourselves. And we'll also learn on a deeper level what it means to be human and connected to those around us and the greater world. So deep listening is a deeply spiritual practice and a great way of practicing presence. Another way of practicing presence that I find useful is walking and running. That's a real practical thing. And I'm a big believer in the spiritual and psychological benefits of being outside and getting some exercise. I take an almost daily walk or run, and I don't mean to be ableist about that. If you're not able to walk or run very far or at all, just go sit outside somewhere that you find relaxing and calming, somewhere in nature, somewhere with some trees, some birds and bugs and sky. So many studies have been done that demonstrate how good this is for us. And in our online inside world that we are so immersed in, this has become so important, I think, for our spiritual and emotional and mental health. And as a spiritual community and a pastor in that community, I think it behooves me to encourage you to do things like that that are good for your spiritual and emotional health. You've probably heard the term before, touching grass, right? That's a popular term these days. It's often leveled as sort of an insult. Go touch grass, man, when you're getting too intense online or something. But it's a good idea because it's easy to lose perspective and to become immersed in our devices, right? Again, countless studies have shown the benefits of what I'm talking about, but it's also rooted in ancient wisdom. This is also rooted in ancient wisdom and in our spiritual traditions. Early Buddhist texts contain a teaching called, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, the Changkoma. It is a structured walking meditation. Early Christian monks, particularly the Desert Fathers, but early Christian monks used walking in silence, especially in the desert and in nature, as a way to pray with the body, to center and to ground oneself. There's something about having an embodied experience like that, an embodied experience outside that involves some form of physical exertion. There's something about that that is so good for us physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. I've also gotten into doing some meditation lately. Jason, I know you're into that too. I recently watched a video by Richard Alpert, the late Richard Alpert, Ram Dass, and he was talking about a method that I've adopted and really like, and I want to share that with you. It's really simple. You concentrate on the rising and falling of your abdomen as you breathe. You can close your eyes while you do this or not, but you concentrate on the rise and fall of your abdomen, diaphragm, as you naturally breathe in and out. Rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. And you'll discover as you do this, as I have, is that all these thoughts, intrusive thoughts, just keep popping into your head, and feelings, and more thoughts, like my knee hurts, or I got to go to the bathroom, or I'm hungry, or I can't forget to pay that bill, etc., etc., etc. But through all of that, rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. And it can feel in those moments when all those thoughts are popping in your head, oh, this isn't working. But it is. And here's why. Because in those moments, you realize, and one of the most important things to realize with meditation is that the mind is just a thought and feeling machine. And it just does this all day long. The mind is just cranking out thoughts and feelings, thoughts and feelings, thoughts and feelings. And meditation helps us realize the fickle and often meaningless nature of what's going on up there, and that we shouldn't over-identify with it. Meditation is like standing next to a stream and watching the water, and every few moments you'll notice a stick drifts by, or maybe a leaf, or a fish. And the trick is to just notice these things as they pass through your vision. Don't lock onto them with your eyes and follow them downstream with your gaze, but rather just let them drift in and out of your vision. You can't stop them from coming anyway. They're going to drift by. They're going to happen. But you can learn to stop fixating on them. And the same is true for our thoughts. Eventually, you'll learn to not over-identify with your thoughts in these spiritual practices of meditation. You will learn to stop over-identifying with your thoughts. And this is huge, because you'll learn You are not your thoughts. Not really. You are rather the experiencer of your thoughts, but you are not your thoughts themselves. This does not mean that our thoughts and feelings are meaningless or not important. Obviously, they are. One must be careful not to take this idea too far and use it to gaslight ourselves or others or engage in spiritual bypassing. And we'll talk about more about that in a moment. But I think there is something really healing and liberating about being set free from the tyranny of our thoughts by learning to not over-identify with them through practicing presence and learning instead that what's most true about you and me at our deepest level is that we are pure awareness itself. Now I'm getting metaphysical. And I'm going to tell you what I believe metaphysically. You've heard me say this before. I believe we are pure awareness, pure being, and pure mind itself. I believe we are fundamentally manifestations and incarnations, if you will, of cosmic consciousness, the mind of God, the Logos, the One, the Source, the Absolute, Brahman, ultimate reality, whatever you want to call it. And it goes by many different names across history and culture. But that's us. This is what I believe we live and move and have our being in, which is, if you know your Bible, that's a line from Acts chapter 17, Paul in Athens. And I think the Gospels reveal this to us as well in the way that Jesus speaks about us as sons and daughters of God, just like he is. And that we too are one with the Father, just like he is. We too are one with ultimate reality, just like he is. This is at the heart of the Gospels, this revelation, this understanding of our humanity. God became man so that man might become God. That's church teaching, Athanasius, 4th century. We are one with the Father. But again, these are ubiquitous and universal ideas found in a myriad of different religions and spiritual traditions across history, and practicing presence in the way that I'm describing today are ways of embracing and embodying this. And we need this today more now than ever in our crazy, disconnected, alienating, isolating world. This is what a spiritual community needs to be doing, I think. Now, I want to go back and talk about how we can avoid misusing this stuff, because this stuff, mindfulness and meditation today, I think is so often misused as a kind of secular spiritual bypassing. What is spiritual bypassing? Anybody want to offer us a definition? There's those of us here who know exactly what spiritual bypassing is. Anybody want to offer a definition? Yeah, Julie. Pastor Julie.
Spirituality or ideas, in this case, about you were not your thoughts and were not your feelings, to get around taking accountability for things you've done to other people or for yourself, to bypass the hard work that you need to do to take accountability or address hard stuff.
Right. That's good. In general, spiritual bypassing, and the way that it's often talked about, is a way of using your religion, your spirituality, whatever it is, as we often see in evangelicalism, a way of saying, God's got that covered. We don't have to do anything. We can avoid a meaningful encounter with the world and avoid taking social action. Thoughts and prayers. You've heard thoughts and prayers before in reaction to gun violence and to major social and political problems. Thoughts and prayers. That's spiritual bypassing. Using God as a way of escaping, using your faith as a way of escaping meaningful responsibility in the world. Well, this is also what's happening in the whole mindfulness meditation movement, whereby people are using it as a way of avoiding a more meaningful encounter with the world and themselves and taking action. A good example would be the way corporate America has co-opted meditation and mindfulness today as a way of maintaining productivity instead of addressing the actual workplace causes of people's burnout and stress. Amazon, I don't know if you're aware, in some of their warehouses, fulfillment centers, has put these little huts in there, these little what they call Amazon booths, Amazon, and where employees, if they're feeling overwhelmed, can go in there on their break, only on their break, and watch some mindfulness videos, I don't know, videos of nature, Zen like things, and then go back to their 12-hour shift under strict surveillance and with the threat of being fired if they don't meet their quota. Right. Thus, mindfulness and meditation are being used by capital to bypass the underlying problems of capitalism. But individuals misuse these things as well. Individuals misuse them as well by avoiding having to confront difficult truths about themselves and the world. Because actually confronting those things would mean having to actually take meaningful action and make meaningful changes. And that can be very difficult and that can be very scary, right? So we got to be careful not to use mindfulness and meditation and other forms of practicing presence as a way of engaging in spiritual bypass. This does not allow us to escape our responsibilities in the world. And I think it's also really helpful to understand this. This is like an axiom, a good takeaway line for today. There is no such thing as self-care without collective care. There is no such thing as self-care without also collective care. Because the main thing we realize, or we should realize, in practicing presence and doing self-care is that we are deeply and inextricably connected to others and the world around us. Practicing presence always includes not just being truly present with ourselves, but also with others, and also present in the greater world, in society, in the social fabric of our lives, in the political fabric of our lives. The social and political are not separate things. I'm not talking about partisanship. I'm talking about social political dynamics. Practicing presence, doing that kind of self-care, must be a way of being present in the world the way the world actually is in all of its troubles. Too often, religion, faith, and spirituality, again, is used as a way of escaping the world as it actually is and covering over the troubles of the world and our anxieties about that and our inability to reconcile that. So often, religion, faith, and spirituality, whatever it is, even mindfulness and meditation, quote unquote, secular spirituality. And by the way, as a quick aside, meditation and mindfulness is actually rooted in Buddhist and Hindu thought and spirituality. Westerners often believe that mindfulness and meditation is like a-religious, it's non-religious spirituality. No, it's actually rooted in Buddhism and Hinduism, which I think should tell us that our ancient spiritual traditions are not just these primitive, useless, irrelevant ideas, but actually deep repositories of ancient wisdom still. But I digress. My point is, practicing presence in any spiritual practice for that matter becomes unhealthy if it is used to create an alternate reality and an escape hatch from the real world and other people. It cannot be an escape from collective care and an escape from social and political action. There is no such thing as self-care without collective care, okay? So that's my talk this morning about practicing presence. Those are some things that work for me. And I want to open the floor and invite you to comment on any of that or share, I don't know, what works for you. What are you doing for self-care these days? What does practicing presence look like for you? Or maybe you want to talk about spiritual bypassing. I don't know. Anybody? Yeah, Jason.
Because meditation is my hobby.
Meditation's your hobby. All right.
I like it. My special interest, yeah.
Say more.
No, when you're talking about the effects of being present, connection, empathy, definitely agree. I did a meditation this morning, and then I was having some cereal, and I was looking at the cereal, and I was feeling oddly gratitude because some of the little things in my like muesli and my nuts and seeds that I eat, it's like, these all came from different places and were put together with a process. And it's just like kind of interesting to see how connected it all was. And it just made me feel gratitude that like I can eat this complicated food.
Yeah.
So I think gratitude comes out of that too. connection for sure. Like if you're, and you talk about listening, to me, listening is paying attention. Like they're the same thing.
Yeah.
So if you pay attention, I think it naturally leads to connection and to feeling between, like the relationship causes feelings. And so, yeah, that's all.
That's really good. So you would say maybe that your meditative practice helps you find the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Yeah, there's just the gratitude that all of this exists and I can eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of cool.
That is very cool. That's awesome. No, I think that's a great story. Thank you. Great anecdote. Somebody else want to reflect on any of this? What does self-care look like for you? What does practicing presence look like for you, maybe? What does spiritual bypassing look like for you? Anything? Yeah?
Tomorrow I am gonna um buy gym for my other house.
Oh, that's great news. She's going to buy a gym for her Elsa house. Ah, yes. The simple joys. That's news to Dad, apparently. You know, Ella's just living in the present, man. Gotta let her do it. That's great. The simple joys of child. That's great. Reminds us of that we can find joy in anything. That's great. That's great. Anybody else today?
I just appreciate you going.
Yeah, let me get you the mic. Yeah, no problem. Because, you know, it's for the podcast.
Now that the mic's here, I feel like there's more pressure, but
Yeah.
I just have had some horrible experiences with spiritual bypassing with, you know, people who consider themselves so spiritually elevated and self-aware that they think they're incapable of doing harm.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, has anyone else experienced that? Like,
There can be arrogance there.
there's
Yeah.
so much arrogance in it, and I've actually had people say to me, "Well, my intentions were pure. If you're feeling something, that's on you." And I have nothing to say except that annoys me so much. I find it so arrogant, the idea that you have no blind spots.
Yeah.
But it also brings up for me, those moments bring up for me something that I truly believe in as like maybe one of the 5 spiritual truths of my life is that communication involves both intention and impact, and we're responsible for both. And that denial of impact is a form of spiritual bypassing. It's like only my intentions matter, and I've, reviewed them and they're pure. And so whatever impact I had on you is your baggage.
And the irony of that is in their arrogance about how spiritually enlightened they are or how present they are, they reveal that they're not very enlightened or present
Right.
by not being able to acknowledge the impact that they're having on others with their behavior.
Right.
Yeah, presence awareness, so quote unquote spiritual enlightenment never sounds like that. Like that kind of
No.
arrogance.
No.
No.
It's such a bypass, and it's such an example of what you said, where people use things like mindfulness and meditation to work on themselves without then also using them to connect to the
Yeah.
larger world.
Yeah. No, and honestly, the most enlightened things I've ever heard from people that have done the work and taken the journey is simply words like, you are enough. You are enough. This is enough. There's nothing you need to do.
Yeah.
You are loved.
Yeah.
And there's no religious hoops to jump through. There's no course to take. There's no guru to follow. There's no church to join that's going to fix everything and make everything wonderful. You are enough. Just be. Learn to just love and embrace and be present and enjoy your cereal. No,
Yeah.
I mean,
For real.
like,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that taking courses is bad or joining a community. Obviously, I'm not saying we're done here. We're closing shop.
Go
But-
home, everyone.
But we can't. But it's arrogant to say that. Oh, we've got the answer. You need to be here to have the. No, we're selling. That's like selling water next to a stream, like a flowing river of fresh water. It's like, no, it's all right here, right now. You can find it out there. You can find it here. Go take a walk. You'll find it there. That's the beauty of it. But maybe we need to hear that in these settings. I hope so. Yeah. Paul, would you like to share something? Could you pass the mic?
Yep.
So my question is, how do you be present with someone that's not present with themselves?
Yeah.
Like that's someone because I have someone in my life who's really shut down.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for me to be with that person because they're so shut down. So how do you practice presence in that kind of a situation?
Yeah. That's a really good question. There's so many other questions I need to ask, and I can't sit up here as like, oh, I know just the answer for you, Paul. Maybe I don't know, is there boundary issues there for you with them? I'm curious, like, are they a safe person for you to be around? Yeah. So I'm hearing some trepidation.
Well, it's a family, somebody in my family.
Yeah.
So
These are
but-
always family.
yeah. So no, but it's a struggle for me just to know, like, because because then I shut down, you know what I mean? It's hard for me to be fully present when the other person is not. That's a challenge.
Yeah, I guess I'll just have to share what I do in those situations, okay, without telling you what to do.
Sure.
For me, the central question in those situations is how can I be a compassionate and loving presence to this person right here, right now? What options are on the table for that? And then how can I also be a compassionate and loving presence for myself and kind of safeguard myself in this as well? How do I balance those two things? That's the question for me. How can I be a loving and compassionate presence for them in this moment and also for myself? And I'm not going to pretend that those questions are easy to answer. And we're going to get it wrong. But if we're constantly coming back to that question and trying, then that's the best we got. I mean, that's the best you can do. And we can be at peace with that. You can be at peace with like fucking it up if you're orientated towards loving presence for yourself and others. You're gonna mess it up. But we can orientate and found ourselves or center ourselves, I think, on that kind of a question. I don't know. Does that help at all?
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah. This is like
I think
chaplaincy
sometimes
stuff.
maybe being honest with the person.
Say that
saying,
again?
I think sometimes it's being honest with the person and saying, hey, I'm just having trouble connecting
Yes.
with you.
That's-
Like, I can't feel you here with me right now. That might throw them, but
share what's going on in
Yeah.
your heart with them. Like, hey,
Right.
look, I'm listening to you. I'm trying to hear you. This is what I'm hearing. I'm trying to, share what's in your heart, that goodness, and but that kind of radical honesty. I'm like, I'm having trouble here because of X, Y, and Z reasons. Yeah, I know it's good, Paul. It's so hard, and to be honest, you more than likely will walk away from that situation not getting the resolution you want. You can't fix them or whatever,
Right.
Yeah, but you can walk away with integrity that you lived your truth in that. And by truth, I don't mean in a kind of harsh, brutal honesty way, but I mean like a loving way.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. I don't know. Anybody else have anything they want to share about that or something else? Yeah, Anna.
Just really quick, your metaphor of the stream was really apt because like I really sometimes struggle with being present. And I think when you're saying don't be obsessed with your thoughts, they can take over, and like it is never helpful. And I tend to perseverate way too much. And so, especially if there's like a stressful event or I know something's coming up and I don't know, like friends, partner, like therapist, they're like, it's just going to come and it's going to pass. And like, don't, get caught in that cycling of just, because it's never helpful, but just, So I liked that stream. I'm going to use that. I'm going to remember that.
Thanks. I got it from Richard Alpert. And I got it from Ram Dass, the late Ram Dass. But yeah, it's a really good metaphor, I thought, too. Yeah. Plus, I like streams and fish. Yeah, good stuff. Anybody else? All right. Oh, yeah. Ellie, you want to say something?
This kind of in 7 days, I'm gonna see my friend Kiki from preschool.
That's awesome. That sounds like so much fun. Yeah. All right.
Actually, that's another way of being present.
I made
He's someone who's
I made
really good
a
friend.
clown.
Yes.
I made a clown for her.
Oh, that's great news. I love it. Oh, thanks, Anna. All right. Well, let's conclude our formal time together, and we can hang out and chat some more if you want, with our joint benediction, a great way of finishing our time together and centering ourselves on a positive note. Let's say this together now. As we go from this place, we commit ourselves to the path of love, honesty, and humility. We dedicate ourselves, as Christ did, to the cause of justice and the courageous embrace of this life, this world, and each other. Amen. Thank you for being here, everybody. Go in peace. And next Sunday, there you go. Yeah, give Julie. Thanks for listening in on this week's edition of the Central Cast. Hope you enjoyed it and hope you join us next time. Bye-bye.